Hello humans, I'm the DaVinci, but you can call me Alien, and welcome back to another video. So today I am going to be talking to you about a bunch of different non-Minecraft related things. You may be wondering why we're starting off this video in Minecraft. It's because most people probably know me by my Minecraft character, because that's the only face really I have on YouTube. So yeah, that's why we're starting off in Minecraft. However, this video has actually nothing really to do with Minecraft. So what this video is going to be is many things. So I will be talking about the hardware I use to make my videos to start with. Then I will talk about the software I use, as well as giving tips throughout both of those sections, as well as, last but not least, giving you a fairly basic tutorial on video editing. I will be aiming the things that I'm talking about in that video towards people making videos with gameplay in, as opposed to editing like a vlog or something, because that's the sort of videos I make as gaming videos, obviously. So yeah, just do bear that in mind. Now, a couple of things I would like to real quickly point out is that at the end of the video there will be a summary of a bunch of stuff, and I may also expand on some points at the end of the video. The editing tutorial, it is recommended that you don't follow along. It's not the type of tutorial that you'll follow along. And second of all, I would also recommend that you make sure to watch it on a computer or a tablet. Basically, don't watch it on your phone. In the editing tutorial, I have not zoomed in to anything I've just not done any zooming or anything like that so people could see my entire screen, which means if you're watching on a small phone, then don't watch it later when you can on a larger screen like a computer or tablet. And yeah, that is pretty much it. I obviously do also go over the hardware that I use. That's not massively important. Then I also go over the software I use. I'll give you tips about the software and the hardware, and then also do make sure to watch the summary at the end. Maybe you don't want to actually watch the editing tutorial. I would still recommend skipping the editing tutorial, just to watch the summary at the end, because yeah, that's a fairly important part of the video. I also know that it can be a bit daunting. This is a 2-hour video. Don't worry, I don't expect you to do it in one sitting, unless you have the time to, of course, because everyone is inside at the moment due to the current situation in the world. But anyway, so yeah, I would recommend, if you do have to go at some point, trying to time the video so that you aren't having to stop watching the video in the middle of a section. Especially for the editing tutorial. The editing tutorial you'll probably want to watch in one sitting, and as I say, don't try and follow the editing tutorial along, because it's not like that. It's more for you guys to go and watch and then to do it. You know, I'm not providing footage for you or anything like that. It's also a very basic editing tutorial as well. So I would recommend, after watching that, if it does look like something that you'd like to learn more of, then, you know, searching on YouTube or Googling other editing tutorials that may be full blown. But yeah, anyway, a more full blown editing tutorial. But yeah, anyway, that's gonna be it from Minecraft me. We're now gonna switch over, first of all, to me showing you the So I think the first thing to do is to get actually into the hardware I use. So let's switch to my camera real quickly, and here it is. This is my PC. I do talk about its full specs in I show you on my website. I also talk about it in the setup tour that I did fairly recently. But yeah, here it is, my PC. So I built this myself. It is a Ryzen 7 3800X along with an RTX 2060, 16 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz RAM. Although I'm probably going to upgrade it in the future to 32 gigabytes because, yeah, reasons to do with video editing and things. So, if you are, of course, building your own PC, or maybe you're just buying your own PC, either way, stuff that you're going to want to look for is making sure that the PC has good cooling, or if you're building it, making sure the PC has enough fans and a good airflow on its case. So I'm using the Corsair 275R airflow. Oh, and by the way, cable management is not necessary for a good recording. As you can see, cable management really not one of my strong points. But yeah, anyway, good airflow. So I actually have 5 fans in total in this system. I mean, 5 case fans anyway. Obviously, I've also got the CPU cooler and the ones on the graphics card. However, for the most part, 5 fans or case fans. So 2 on the top, 2 on the side, like front bit, and then 1 on the back front bit as well. So the back one is actually the output that will be outputting all the warm air from inside the computer, and then the 2 on the top and the 2 on the side will be bringing in cold air into the computer. I've trialed actually a bunch of different fan layouts, and this is the one that actually affected my performance the most. I actually turned one of the ones on the top, I actually turned that the other way around so that it was taking out air, and actually found that my CPU went down in performance by a fairly large margin. And the rendering and stuff like that for my videos was just taking longer, so I switched it back to bringing cold air in instead of bringing warm air out. And obviously that is what you want to do. You want to bring cold air in and warm air out. So some other stuff is, this isn't really necessary, however, it's overclocking. So I have overclocked the CPU, the GPU, and the RAM, or the memory. So let's start off with the RAM, because the RAM actually has an advertised speed and then an actual speed it will run at. Now my advertised speed for the memory I have is actually 3600 megahertz. However, when I first put it in my PC, it was not running at 3600 megahertz. Now the reason why that was is because DDR memory actually pretty much halves the actual speed of the advertised RAM. So it was actually running at something like 2100 instead of 3600 megahertz. Now I enabled something called XMP on my motherboard, which allowed it to run at its advertised speed, and now it is running at its advertised speed. Technically, that is overclocking. Next up, we have the CPU. That's just pretty simple. Most CPUs will have a base clock and then a boost clock. I'm just running my CPU at its boost clock. Then we've also got the graphics card. I ran the overclocker tool on my graphics cards software, and that just basically found the best overclocking results without making it get too hot or power consumption getting too high or that sort of thing. So technically those 3 things are actually overclocked. However, you'll notice I didn't do any manual overclocking. I don't think that's necessary. I kind of just sticked to all the automatic overclocking tools that I had for each specific component. Okay, so I now want to talk about file management. Hopefully, I'll try not to spend too long on this because I did accidentally, in the last take about 10 minutes talking about file management. So we will fairly quickly go over it. But you can see here, this is where Windows installed on my C drive. And then we have the D drive. This is a hard drive I have completely dedicated to YouTube things. And then you can also see I have the F drive here. This is actually for virtual machines. However, right now, there's actually nothing on them. Well, there's no virtual machines on them anyway, because I kind of forgot to set that up. Or no, I've not forgot to set that up, it's just I've not got a chance to set that up, to be honest. But anyway, the main thing you're going to want to focus on is the D drive. So you may not have a separate hard drive that you can just use for recording or for your YouTube or whatever. That's fine. However, I actually got this out of an old laptop and put it into my PC. So that's actually where this is from, and it is a 1 terabyte hard drive, or 931 gigs after formatting. So, as you can see here, in my opinion, everything is fairly organized. We've got the 3 YouTube channels I do stuff on at the top, and then we've got other stuff, Minecraft things, backups, other stuff personal from laptop code and applications. Admittedly, I'm actually not happy with this order. I personally think other stuff should be at the end. But I haven't been bothered to change around the order. And speaking of the order, the way you order your files is by making sure it is set to name and then putting a number at the start. Originally, I used to put a dot at the start. So for an example, dot new folder. However, on Mac and Linux, I believe, if you have the dot at the start, it will actually create a hidden folder, which is not what you want. So if you're using a removable drive and there's a chance you're plugging it into a Mac or a Linux computer, then you're not going to be able to see this folder because it's hidden. So I would not recommend putting dots at the start of your folders. I would recommend using numbers. And actually, in my opinion, I think I prefer the look of the numbers as opposed to the dots. But yeah, we're kind of going to skip over most of this other stuff because it's not really necessary for recording. And we're just going to go straight into the AlienDoctor folder, the main one I use. And you can see here, it's ordered again into videos, templates, logos, stream stuff, thumbnail templates, and music. Music is just where I store all the music that I use. So for an example, I have this folder just called regular. This is all the regular music I use. And then I also have other folders for other music that I use as well, or maybe music that I used and then got a copyright strike on and then realized I couldn't use it again, and that probably made me quite sad. For an example, I don't have a license for Epidemic Sounds and I'm really sad because I really want to use the music on there, but yeah, obviously I can't without getting claimed. It's a shame, but I'll talk about free music later in this video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, there's also thumbnail templates. This is where I have like 3 different templates for my thumbnails because I like my thumbnails having some form of consistency. Stream stuff, this is just to do with streaming, so like the assets and the music as well. And then the most important one arguably is videos. So I have categorized each video into a different folder. So we got series, add-ons, this is for when I'm showing a Minecraft add-on, tutorials, redstone showcase, Minecraft maps, other, and background footage. Background footage is just, for example, if I'm doing a video where it's just me talking and I obviously don't want it to be a black screen, however there's no real focus on the screen, I'll just put in some background footage. So, I just recorded like a couple of games of like the bridge or whatever, and I can just use that as background footage. For example, I did that in the video where I talked about why I played Bedrock Edition, just that sort of thing. But yeah, the main thing that I've done is obviously in here series, and then let's just choose Big Ink season 1. You can see here I have all of the episodes so far all in their own folder, and then if we open one of those, you can see I have the thumbnail as well as the final episode and all of the clips for that episode. And that is the same for pretty much every video. Some of the older videos actually don't have that. For an example, I think episode 3. Oh no, episode 3 is there. Episode 4 then. Yeah, as you can see, episode 4 is missing quite a lot of its clips. It's only got clip number 7, actually. But yeah, still, either way, I would recommend doing this. It's especially useful if you're making like an end of year montage like I did. It means I can still have the high quality original recordings instead of having to screen record the compressed YouTube versions. And we'll talk about YouTube compression in a bit. Okay, so going back to mic quality and microphone stuff and audio. NVIDIA Broadcast, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, which I strongly recommend if you want to get into YouTube and streaming as well, get an NVIDIA graphics card. They have the NVENC encoder, which only works on NVIDIA graphics cards, and NVIDIA Broadcast, amongst other stuff. NVIDIA Broadcast is potentially going to be a lifesaver. So as you might have been able to see in the hardware part I showed earlier, my mic has a boom arm, and one of the problems with my boom arm is it does not have any acoustic foam or material at the bottom, and it's clamped onto my desk, meaning if I tap my desk you can hear that, and you can hear just every little thing when I touch my desk. NVIDIA Broadcast actually cuts out the background audio. It is honestly a lifesaver. You obviously might not be using a boom arm, so you might not have the same problem as me. However, you might really like Cherry MX blue switches, and that's fair. I personally get really annoyed at the noise, but like you might like them, and you might get, even though you might like them, you might get annoyed that actually you can hear it in the background of your videos, and I can guarantee you people will get annoyed at it. NVIDIA Broadcast will block it out, and it's amazing. I would strongly recommend it. There's like clips of people testing it out, taking it to the extreme and using it for things it's realistically not designed for, and it still holds up just so well. Like honestly, use this. And if your mic has maybe background static as well, this should also get rid of that. It is so useful. There's also things for your output, so it can also block background sounds from your output. However, I don't really use that often. And then also camera, if you wanted to like background blur the camera as well. But yeah, that's NVIDIA Broadcast, would recommend. Okay, so let's actually move on to the most important part, and that is the actual recording software I use. So I use OBS Studio. OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software. And you can see here it has recording and it also has streaming. I actually don't use it for streaming. I instead use this, Streamlabs OBS for streaming. The reason why is because it has things like alerts. So for an example, if somebody follows me on Twitch, as you can see, it came up with the alert. And that is just a really useful feature which isn't built in to OBS, although there are still ways to get it. But that's why I use Streamlabs OBS. Things are pretty much the same. In fact, you'll be able to see like there are the scenes over here, and then there are the scenes over here, and then the sources over here, and then the sources over here. They are basically the same. In fact, this is based off of this. It literally has OBS in its name. Like, you know, they're the same. So once you learn OBS Studio, and maybe like you might start off making videos and then be like, I want to stream, it's pretty easy to then figure out how to use Streamlabs OBS because they're pretty much the same thing. Now, I am actually using Streamlabs OBS just to record this part of the video because that means I can show you my settings and actually change the settings and that sort of thing, whereas you can't do that whilst recording on OBS. So, yeah. So, just really quickly, I'm just going to real quickly talk to you about display capture and game capture. So if you right click and press add, and then you can choose, or actually I generally just press this plus button, and then obviously you can choose a new source. So for an example, let's say we want to capture our game. Some people might think using display capture is what they should use. However, don't use display capture. The only time I use display capture is when I'm recording Minecraft Bedrock Edition, and that's because display capture doesn't let me capture the cursor when I'm playing that game. For pretty much every other game, you can capture the cursor as well using game capture. The reason I say you should use game capture, not display capture, is because game capture is optimized for games, and it will give you better in-game performance and better recording performance. Overall, you're going to want to use game capture. To set it up, just click on it, press OK, and then you select this to capture a specific window, and then you can choose which game you want to capture. I've actually not got any game open right now, so I can't really show you that. But yeah, either way, it is just, yeah, I would strongly recommend using game capture over display capture. I won't really go into any other details about scenes and also profiles on OBS and scene collections. I won't go into too much detail about that because honestly, I can make an entire dedicated tutorial to OBS. And OBS is free, by the way. Like, most of the stuff I show in this video will be free. Anything that's paid, I'll show you free alternatives. So if we open up the settings, I will also show you my settings because I actually spent ages working out these settings to give me high quality videos without recording in so high quality that it wasn't worth it. Because no matter how high quality videos you're recording in, YouTube are going to compress it and it is going to be significantly worse quality than the actual video that you're uploading, and that is just the sad truth of it. So in the general tab, you're not really going to need to change anything, or the stream tab, unless of course you're streaming. The main thing you don't want to change is in the output tab, and then recording. By default, the output mode will be on simple, and you're going to want to change it to advanced, because you may be scared to tweak around with these settings, but don't worry, I've already done it for you, so I can tell you the best ones. Make sure that you have 2 audio tracks. You may wish to have 3. However, I prefer just having 2. One audio track will be for your mic, and one audio track will be for your like game sound, or just the sound coming out of your computer basically. Make sure the encoder is on the NVIDIA encoder. New, make sure it has new in the brackets at the end. You may not have the option for this if you don't have an NVIDIA graphics card. If you don't, then I think the only other option you'll have is X264. You might have to Google the best encoder for your CPU and then the best encoder for your GPU, and then just figure out. You might have to do a little bit of your own research if you don't have an NVIDIA graphics card that supports it. However, for me, I can use the NVIDIA NVENC encoder. It's the best one to use. You may want to rescale your output from lower than 1080p to like 720p, for example. However, you're not going to want to do that here. You're going to want to do that somewhere else. You can also leave the custom Muxus settings. Don't actually know what that even means, to be honest. Oh, and recording format, you're probably going to want to record in MP4 unless you're editing on a Mac or you're just using software that doesn't support MP4, then you're probably going to want to have to record in MOV. I wouldn't recommend any of these others because most things don't support them. The ones that are supported the most is MP4 and MOV. I'm going to select MP4 because that's the one I use. If you're on Windows, then I can guarantee you using MP4 is fine. If you're editing on a Mac, then you may have to use MOV. Rate control, make sure that's on CBR. Bitrate. YouTube recommends a minimum of 8,000 bitrate for 1080p 60 FPS. I recommend a minimum of 10,000 bitrate for 1080p 60 FPS. And I recommend the highest bitrate you should ever do is 15,000. Don't go above 15,000. It's not worth it. The effects, it's just not worth the extra file size and extra quality when YouTube compresses it anyway. So I personally think 12,000 is the sweet spot, assuming that you still have a decent PC. You may have to change this and lower this or higher it depending on the specs of your PC. Or you won't have to hire it if you've got a low-end one. But if you've got a high-end one, you may wish to hire it. I have a fairly high-end PC, however, I don't feel the need to hire it, to be honest. However, if you're recording on like Vimeo or whatever, I believe the compression isn't as bad as on there, which means you may want to go at a higher bitrate, but you'll have to look at the recommended bitrate for that. Keyframe interval, put that on 2. Don't put it on auto, it's just so laggy when you do that. And honestly, I wish I knew about these settings when I was recording on my laptop, because then I would have had amazing quality on my laptop. And I'm so sad, honestly, that yeah, I didn't know about these. But yeah, preset, max quality, profile high, look ahead and psycho visual tuning both on, GPU 0 and max B frames 2. Make sure to press apply when you have set these settings. Other things you're going to want to do is in the video tab, go set this to whatever resolution your monitor is. So I have a 1080p monitor, so set it to that resolution. This is now the resolution that you want your recording to be in. This is where you're going to set it. So let's say I want to record in 1080p, however I want to downscale it to 720, I would select 720p. Bear in mind that YouTube only supports 1080p, 720p, 480p and 360p, and a bit lower than that, however OBS doesn't let you record it lower than that. So if you record in, let's say, 648p, I'm guessing that'd be called, YouTube will then just downscale that to 480p. So it's not worth going in between any of those numbers because, yeah, YouTube will just downscale it basically. This is where you'd select the FPS. Now, you may want to go higher than 60. Honestly, wouldn't recommend it unless you know some fancy editing things. But YouTube only supports 60 FPS, so bear that in mind. But you can select it to integer FPS value, and the highest you can go on here is actually 120. It will not let you go any higher than that. However, for most of you, 60 FPS should be fine. You may have to turn it down a little bit as well. I would recommend recording on 60 FPS and then seeing down here where if it actually reaches 60 FPS and like, because if it goes down and up and stuff, then you're not going to want, if it like regularly spikes up and down, you're not going to want to keep it at 60. You're going to want to lower it to whatever it can sustain as. So, for example, on my laptop, it was at 48 FPS. In the hotkeys, as I mentioned earlier, I just set this to F6 to stop and start recording. Then in the advanced process priority, this is just the priority of which your OBS recording is. Like, so if you set this to normal, or no, if you set this to like idle, for example, then it won't have a very high priority for your computer, and your computer will focus on running the game instead of running OBS, which will give you obviously bad results. I would recommend putting it on above normal or maybe high if you have a low-end PC. Renderer, direct, 3D 11, NV12, color space 709, color range partial. I tried it on full, it just looks weird, doesn't look right. These are the default settings for the video bit. However, I'm going to be honest, I think all the other ones don't look quite right as this. Okay, so earlier in the settings tab, I talked in the output tab about having 2 audio tracks, or if I didn't, I should have. I can't really remember. I might have missed that out accidentally, but I'm not going to re-record that clip because it's like 10 minutes long. So yeah, make sure you have 2 audio tracks ticked. And the reason why is because one's for your mic, one's for your game sound. However, you actually need to make sure that down here in the audio mixer that you are actually using those 2 audio tracks. So right click and press advanced audio properties and then select your mic to be on audio track 1 and your desktop audio to be on audio track 2. It's a pretty important part. Also, in the audio tab, you can actually select your microphone. So what some people do is they add the source and they add an audio input source. You don't need to do that because you can just select it in the audio tab where it will then automatically put it in your audio mixer. But yeah, that is everything that you should need to know about OBS and settings specifically. Some of it you may have to tweak around. Something else to point out is that anything under 1080p on YouTube will get compressed worse than in anything above 1080p. So for an example, 1080p footage will look significantly worse quality than 1440p footage on YouTube because of different compressing methods. So if you have the ability to record in 1440p, do it. I wouldn't recommend recording gameplay in 4K though. However, also don't try and push yourself or your computer more because it will mean just worse quality for your videos, or most likely if you try and record in a higher resolution than your computer can handle, most likely what's just going to happen is that your recordings will get a lot more frame ratey, and by that I mean the frame ratey will keep going up and down and it's just not a good experience. Just don't do it. Some people feel the need to record audio in a different software. In my opinion, it's not worth it. If you were going to, Audacity would be the one that I recommend using. However, it's not worth it. Just use OBS. Unless you're only recording the audio, then you're going to want to use Audacity. But if you are recording, if you're recording voiceovers, use Audacity. If you're recording gameplay with audio, then use OBS. I don't understand why people use 2 because it's just a pain to synchronize the audio between the 2, especially if you're not using a camera, because then you've got no real way of syncing it. And you can split the audio tracks in OBS, so there's no real benefit of having a separate audio track from Audacity. Basically, the point is that it's just not worth recording on Audacity and recording in OBS and then syncing up the audio. It's just not worth it. Don't do it. Just don't waste the time. However, if you do feel the need to, Audacity is free and it's the one I'd recommend using. So the next thing to talk about is thumbnails. Now I am going to leave the editing software I use until last because that's the most in-depth part of this tutorial, because editing is something that I imagine most of you will struggle with. However, with regards to making thumbnails, this is the one piece of paid software I do have, and it is Adobe Photoshop. Now, I'm just going to say this, do not pirate software, it is not worth it, okay? The risk of you getting a virus, and also the fact that it is literally illegal, in my opinion, doesn't really make it worth it. So just don't pirate software. There are plenty of good free alternatives, and you've got to get out of the mindset of thinking that if something is free, it is bad, because especially in terms of software, it isn't always bad, okay? So just think about that. But yeah, for making my thumbnails, Sometimes I use Blender if I want to make a 3D render or something. However, I'm not really that smart and don't really know how to use Blender. But if you were to make 3D renders, just search for some like videos on YouTube and it will show you how to use it. Blender's free and it's, as I just mentioned, used for making 3D renders. So if you want to make like a 3D render of your Minecraft skin or something, then yeah, this is the software to do it. However, yeah, I'm not that smart, so I generally don't use Blender. However, I am learning how to use Blender, or I will learn how to use Blender, just not yet. Now, Photoshop. This is the main thing that I use for making my thumbnails, and I'm gonna be honest, most of you are probably not gonna want to have to pay monthly for this, especially when it's just for a simple thing like making your thumbnails. And to be honest, I agree, it's really not worth it. The only reason I have this is because my dad pays for it, because he likes photography, and so he already had it, and so he just said I could use it as well. But like most of you aren't going to even need Photoshop to be making your thumbnails, because I am going to show you two alternatives right now. So let's open up Chrome. The first one is called Photopea. As you can see, Photopea is clearly based off of Photoshop, and it's honestly, they're not even trying to hide it. Like, this is very, very clearly a Photoshop clone. It also runs in your web browser, meaning that if you potentially don't have a good enough PC to run Photoshop, if you're willing to pay, obviously, and you don't have a good enough PC to run Photoshop, or if you another free alternative that is downloaded can't run on your PC, then Photopea is probably your best bet, because it runs in your browser, so it's a lot less performance demanding, and it even can open Photoshop files. So this thumbnail template here was created and is saved in a Photoshop file on the actual version of Photoshop, and as you can see, Photopea has opened it absolutely fine. You could follow tutorials about Photoshop and you would still, all of the stuff it's just the same as Photoshop, okay? Pretty much everything is there, to the point where even quite a lot of the macros or the hotkeys or whatever you call them, even they are in Photopea. So honestly, this is probably your best bet. However, I can also understand you not wanting to have to use a web app. I don't really like using things in my browser like this. So there is another free alternative that instead is an actual app that you can download, and it's GIMP. GIMP stands for GNU Image Manipulation Program. I'm actually pretty sure it comes pre-installed on most Linux computers, I believe. And yeah, it is designed... I don't know who it's designed by. I don't know where I was going with that sentence, to be honest. But yeah, it is just an overall pretty good image editing software. It is open source and it's free, and it's been going for 25 years, apparently. This is actually a brilliant alternative to Photoshop. I know of YouTubers that have used this perfectly fine, and I also used it a little bit before I realized I had access to Photoshop. So yeah, you should definitely use this or Photopea. Don't pirate software, it's a bad thing to do. So something you may be wondering is music. So I'll show you a couple of good royalty-free music libraries. Bear in mind that you may have to credit some of the music used here. Generally with free stuff, or free music anyway, you always have to credit it. First one is the YouTube Audio Library. So if you just Google YouTube Audio Library, it's actually not this first one. This one is actually a YouTube channel. I guess you could obviously get music from here. I've never used this. I don't know how good it is. So I suppose you could, I guess, get music from here. But there's also the official YouTube Audio Library, which is this second link down here. And this also has a bunch of free music, some of which I do actually use in my videos. You can also star it, so if you want to, and then you can like come back to it later. You might want to, you know, use it in your video. Obviously, if you look here, this one's Creative Commons, which means you have to credit the music. However, these ones you can use for free without even having to credit, which is pretty nice. I still credit anyway, just in case, but you don't actually have to if you don't want to. You could also search by track title, genre, mood, artist name, duration, or whether you have to credit or not. As I mentioned, there's also this YouTube channel that I showed you earlier. I suppose you can use this if you want. However, my favourite YouTube channel to use is actually the Argo Fox YouTube channel. This has a bunch of mostly electronic music, but I do actually really like quite a lot of this music. All of my stream music, including the Starting Soon music, is all from Argo Fox. I do like Argo Fox music, I'm going to be honest, and I actually do listen to quite a lot of it as well, not just for royalty-free music. And in each video, so let's just choose this one. In each video, we also get an advert. Just go away, stupid Grammarly advert, no one cares. But in the description of each of their videos, if you look over here, there's a link to SoundCloud. If you click this link, it will open SoundCloud, obviously. Let's just pause there real quickly. And you may have to have an account for SoundCloud. I actually don't know. However, if you then press more, you can download it. You do have to give credit to like most of their videos, as you can see, credit. But yeah, just as long as you credit, it's generally okay. And make sure you do credit, because these people have been really nice giving you free music, basically. The next one I use quite a lot is bensound.com. I would strongly also recommend this. This is more for just general background music. They also do have ones that you can purchase as well. There's also freemusicarchive.org, Incompetech, or however you say that, and freesound.org as well. I don't really use these, but they're also there if you want to use them. There's also a YouTube channel fairly similar to Argo Fox called NCS, or No Copyright Sounds. And I believe I actually haven't used any of their video or music before. However, I'm pretty sure it's just like Argo Fox, where you have to, look, you've just got to credit it, basically. And yeah, this is, I believe most of it's on here is like electronic music. I don't know what style of music there is on here. Although I do believe they have a website as well. Look, a website where you can like also download their music. And I guess this is probably the better place to do it than a YouTube channel. But yeah, there's that there as well. Okay, so moving on to one of the most important parts of your video making, and that is actually the video editor that you use. Now, my video editor of choice is called DaVinci Resolve. It is free, and it does not give you watermarks. It's made by Blackmagic Design. They are an actual cinema photographer camera company thing. Like, these are professional people, okay? And there is a paid version of this if you want it, called DaVinci Resolve Studio. And the studio version is actually a one-time payment instead of a subscription, which might be easier for you if you want the features of the paid version, which, as far as I'm concerned, aren't really worth it. You can get by using the free version absolutely fine, to be honest. Now, DaVinci Resolve is, well, as I said earlier, most people, because it's free, probably question it and think, oh yeah, I'm sure it's not that good. However, in my opinion, this is the best free video editing software out there. I have tried others, and they give you watermarks or like limits on how long your video can be. This is the best one, trust me. You can try others, however, I would recommend this one. So this will turn into a little bit of a mini tutorial about DaVinci Resolve. Now, if I'm being completely honest, because I do just want to show you how to use this thing, because I am learning how to use it myself, and I think it's actually a brilliant piece of software once you just understand how to use it, especially if you're used to like Premiere Pro or something. But this can match Premiere Pro. In fact, a while ago, Linus Tech Tips, the YouTube channel, made a video where they actually switched to this for a bit, and they said that they could use this. However, the only reason they're not is because they already like have Adobe things. Their editors are already used to using Adobe software, and also all the Adobe software kind of like mingles into one. However, if you're not already using Adobe software, you're not really going to have to worry about that. You can just use Resolve for editing, because, you know, you're not used to any other video editor. So we're going to open the thing for this actual video. The way you do that is as you can see, have got sort of a semi file structure going on. So Minecraft podcast, this is for a tutorial I'm following. Alien 2, which is my second channel. Templates and similar things. This is just a little test, and it's called delete soon, because like sooner or later I'll delete it. And then other, if we open up the other folder, how I make my videos, that is actually the project for this video. And you can see here, I'll explain to you exactly how it works right now, actually. So the idea of it is that you would go do this in stages. So you start with media, then move to cut, then move to edit, fusion, color, fairlight, and delivery. And yes, that works potentially for like some sort of cinema production or something, or maybe if you're editing footage with like pro cameras and that sort of thing. However, if you're like me and you're just editing, screen captures, then you can skip the media step, because, well, you can skip a lot of these steps actually. But yeah, the idea of the media tab is that you import all your media into it. It's actually, I don't really think it's a necessary tab, to be honest. The cut tab, this is where you'd cut down all of your media. So you would trim it or cut it in half and that sort of thing. Edit, this is where you'd edit things. So add text, put it all onto one timeline and that sort of thing. Fusion, this is for animations. As far as I'm aware, this is actually pretty good for animations as well. But I don't really understand it. And I would love to understand it, and I am actually, as I say, working through tutorials about this. Color, this is for color correction. DaVinci Resolve was originally made and designed for color correction as well, and just things like that. I've heard Premiere Pro people comparing this to Premiere Pro and saying that this is actually better. Now, they have said that compared to Premiere Pro, the way you use it is a bit different. However, once you use it, it is actually apparently better color correction than Premiere Pro. Fairlight, this is for audio. This apparently this is actually fairly decent, and you can use it for like actual audio engineers and things like that. But I don't really understand a lot of this stuff. I'm not really an audio person. I don't understand certain things about audio. I understand the basics and that it. And then deliver, this is just where you'd render your final video into one file. So for me and for most of you, you can skip the media and the cut tab, because all of the stuff that you're probably going to need to do in the cut tab, you can do in the edit, and that's the same with the media, you can also do in the edit. So skip ahead straight to the edit tab, and the first thing you're going to want to do is press Control and I on your keyboard, or Command and I on your keyboard. You're then going to want to locate all of the footage for your video. Okay, so I actually have all my clips in one folder, or actually, well, yeah, I do. However, instead of having to go through my file structure, an easier thing to do is to just hit Control C and actually copy this file path, and then we can paste it up here. Hit enter, and then there we go. We've got all the clips for this video. So we're now going to select all of them like that and press open. Now it's going to come up with this little thingy here. We are going to want to change the frame rate to match the recordings. So if you have recorded in different frame rates for different clips, then press don't change and instead go up here to file and project settings, and here you can manually change the FPS as well. If you obviously have recorded your clips in a bunch of different FPS and you just want to choose that one specific frame rate. But yeah, the next thing I'm going to want to do is add my music. So we're going to hit Control and I. We're going to go back to the DaVinci music, regular. We're actually only going to need this music and I think the outro. I don't think we're really going to need any other music for this video. Obviously, normally I'd import all of them, but this isn't a Minecraft video. So then, as you can see, you may have to press this button here for the media pool. However, as you can see, if you do, a little media pool will appear here, or it might appear like this. You may also want to press the effects library. That will open up a bunch of effects, which we'll talk about in a bit. There's also edit index and sound library. DaVinci Resolve actually has a free sound library as well. However, I don't think you really need it, to be honest. So yeah, we're not going to download that. But what else is there? So yeah, that's it. I would recommend having Media Pool and Effects Library actually as the two that are open. I guess we go to close edit index, open effects library. There we go. But yeah, this is how I normally have it. So let's drag in our first clip. Or actually, this might not be our first clip because I can see here by the clip thumbnails, I can see here that they both kind of look like the intro. So what we're going to do is double click on the clip. And then we're going to drag this playhead back a little bit. So over here, this is the clip that you have selected in the media pool. This is the clip that you have just down here in your timeline. Obviously, our timeline is empty, so there's nothing here. But because we double clicked on this, it's opened it over here. And now we can watch this clip back and, you know, like see if it is the right one or if it's just like a blooper or like a take that we don't want to include. Hello humans, I'm the AlienDoctor, but you can call me Alien. And welcome back to another video. Today's going to be a bit different. So I think the first thing to do is to get an icon here that this is not the intro and this is the intro clip. So we're going to drag this in down here to our timeline. Because I'm recording, by the way, things might... Oh no, maybe I can't record whilst doing this. I don't know. Things are going to be significantly slower whilst I'm recording, and that's just going to be a fact, and I can't really help that. So as you can see here, there are two audio tracks, and that is because obviously earlier in OBS we actually set it to do that. So you can see here, this has got my desktop audio and this has got my actual mic audio. Now if we click on, and then this blue bit up here is actually just the video. So you can see here is that in total we have 3 different sort of like tracks or channels or whatever they're called. You can see here 1 video and 2 for the 2 audios, audio 1, audio 2 and video 1. You can rename these if you want. And I'm pretty sure you can do the same thing here. I don't know how to rename them. It doesn't really matter though. You don't realistically ever going to need to rename them. You can also change the size of things as well if you want. I don't know, I don't really feel the need to though. So yeah, if we press play on this side, then as you can see, it is going to play the clips in the up here. We're just going to pause that. Now if we click here and then open the inspector, we can change things. So we can change the zoom of the clip, we can change the position, we can change the rotation point, the anchor point, a bunch of other stuff, dynamic zooms, we'll get into that later, audio as well, so the volume and other things that I don't really understand. But yeah, we're going to just set this all back to default, so let's put the zoom back to 1, and wow, I have done stuff that I didn't even know was possible. I guess we'll set this to 0, and set this to 1. And set this, oh actually no, technically that should be on 0. And that should be on 0 as well. Well, it already isn't 0. And you can also like move it like that, or you can just type in your own number if you want to get it exact. I don't actually know what composite mode does. Doesn't really matter though. So yeah, you can do that. Now, as you can see, if we click on just one of these tracks, they are linked. Now we can either right click and press link clips here to unlink them or link them back again. However, that's not the way I'd recommend doing it. Instead, I would recommend pressing this button right here that says linked selection. If you uncheck that, it means that you will only select one of them, even though these 3 clips are still linked, which is useful. If we try to move one, you can see here that it will like warn you that these are linked and kind of like out of sync now. So we're going to put that back like that. We're also going to turn this back on. I don't think this one matters too much. I think this is just like if you don't want to accidentally move this or something, but we don't really need that. And then last one is this, which is snapping. If we turn snapping off, and we'll also turn link selection off real quickly, then you can see here when I try to move one, it's not snapping to like the playhead. The playhead is this orange thing, or like the start or end. Whereas if we turn snapping on, then you can see here it snapped there or there. And yeah, it's actually super useful. I rarely turn this off unless I'm trying to fine tune a cut or something. The last thing that you're going to want to know is that this button right here, the blade edit mode, or you can also press B to activate it. These hotkeys will really come in handy. And what this allows you to do is straight up just cut your clips in half, which is actually super useful. Obviously, you can press Ctrl Z to go back if you don't want to do that. But yeah, blade edit mode is super useful. There's also like all this other stuff like dynamic trim mode and trim edit mode. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what it does. Obviously, bear in mind that when you are on blade edit mode, to go back to your normal cursor, you are going to have to press just the selection mode, also known as A on your keyboard. Okay, so something I should also explain to you is about the timeline real quickly. So I kind of just assumed that you already knew what a timeline was. However, you may not know what a timeline is. So to put it simply, it's just where all of your clips are. Now, the higher up the clip in the timeline, it's kind of like layers. The higher the up, then then that's the one that will be shown on the top. So for an example, let's say we want to add in this of our of my PC, and we're just gonna unlink these clips and also get rid of the audio because we don't really need the audio. So there we go. We can now drag this down a bit and right click over here and press delete empty tracks. There we go. But as you can see, we now have a kind of higher quality footage, to be honest. Like, this is with my phone camera, this is with a webcam, and you actually really see the difference. But yeah, just of my PC there. And you can see that because this clip is higher than this clip, it's the one that will actually be shown in the video. But for example, if we were just to like zoom out on this clip, you can see that in the background it would still be there. So let's say you want to change the audio of just your mic and not this, then like not your desktop audio, you can press this button here, link selection, to unpress that, and then you can press down here and actually change the volume to whatever you want. Although I'm actually happy with that volume, or am I? I think I'll turn it up a little bit. So let's do that. Now obviously you've got the waveforms here. If you press this, then you can actually choose the waveforms, and as well as the track height and that sort of thing. So I have it on these settings, and that allows me to see the waveforms as well as like subtitle tracks if necessary. Well, actually, I suppose we can turn that off because I don't really use subtitles. But yeah, if you press this one, and this one, make sure all the others are off. That will allow you to see the audio waveforms in the way that I've got it. I believe that's also the standard way of doing it as well. But yeah, as you can see there, we have now changed the audio of just this. So we can now turn that back on, because generally it's useful to leave this on so that we move all these clips at once instead of moving it individually. You can also, obviously, I forgot to measure this, but you can just like crop videos like that just by like the edges. And yeah, that's just a useful thing to be able to do sometimes. So let's say now you want to add in some text. Well, you're going to make sure the effects library is open. And if you come down here to titles and then text. So let's say I want to add some text here. Now we're going to put the playhead over it so that we can see what the text looks like. We're then going to click on it and then make sure the inspector up here is open. And we're going to type in whatever text we want. So I'm just going to type in something like, sorry if my voice sounds a little weird. So obviously the text might go off the screen a little bit, and you can just press enter to do a new line like I did here. Or you can change the size of the text with this thingy here. You can also change the color. We're going to keep it as white though. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know. You can also change like the alignment if you want it to be centered or like whatever, which actually, yeah, let's do that. There we go. We can also change the font. So I'm going to change it to the font that I always use, which is Cooper Black. And as you can see, because this font's a lot thicker, so we're going to have to turn it down a little bit more. If we actually go up here to the video, we can also change its position and that sort of thing. However, we're going to leave it at the default because I'm fine with that. We're also going to trim the text because we don't want it to be on for that long. So we're going to put it down to there. And also zoom as well. You can zoom in and out by using this thing up here. However, for the most part, I generally just like to keep it on whatever zoom this is. It doesn't really tell you, but yeah, this is generally how I zoom. If you look up here, this editor thing, this tells you if you've edited it. I'd recommend every so often just making sure you press Ctrl and S on your keyboard to make sure you've saved your project. Something to point out is that over here you can obviously see this thing. If I start playing the video again, you can see that if it goes into the red section, that's generally too high. So you're going to want to try and keep it in the yellow section. So we are actually going to turn down this audio a little bit. Because yeah, you do want to try and keep it on the yellow section. To be honest, that's actually still too high. I think I'm going to leave it back to its default volume. Okay, so let's say you want to add transitions between two clips. So obviously we got here a clip of me just, you know, talking about basically the intro, and then obviously we move in to the hardware part where I obviously show my computer and stuff. Now you want to add in a transition, and that's fair. Now audio transitions are here. There's not actually that many, to be honest. I believe there actually might be more. Well, yeah, I believe these might even be sound effects. I don't really know. I don't use them, as I said. But audio transitions, there's not that many, but you know, you can crossfade the audio if you want. And then video transitions, there's a bunch of different video transitions here that you could use if you want. Generally, I don't use these. I personally think it looks professional just using fairly basic ones instead of fancy ones. And actually, the basicest one you can do is literally just to right click in between it. So look, when your cursor turns into that, like, symbol, if you right click and then press either 14 frame, 30 frame, 60 frame or 120 frame cross dissolve, then it will add in a transition. I tend to do 30 frame cross dissolve transitions, and you are going to have to trim the clips a little bit, but as you can see, craft at all. So it just had a little bit of a cross dissolve there instead of just doing a clean cut. So something else to point out is that if you want to extend one clip over the other clip, if you then go and put your cursor in between two clips, then you can like move them along like that and kind of just change where the divide is between the two. Obviously it doesn't really work properly when this is just a clip that's been split in half. It's a lot more noticeable if it's like two different clips. So let's say we want to cut out a specific part of the video. So let's say we want to get rid of this end bit. Obviously we can just crop it like that and then move this along like that. However, there is actually an easier way to do it. So using this button up here, the blade edit mode, or pressing B on our keyboards, then you can literally just split a clip in half, or not necessarily in half, like, you know, just cutting it like we have done here, and then click on it, and then to delete it, press Ctrl X, and as you can see, it's deleted. But let's say that we obviously didn't want that gap there, so let's instead click on it and then do Shift and Backspace. That does what's called ripple delete, which means it will move all the clips backwards. Sometimes it does mess up the audio down here, although it does look okay to me. So yeah, I guess it's a positive. And yeah, as you can see, we now have got a cut between the two clips that I wanted to do. Something else to point out about is actually the hotkeys that you use. And I'm trying to figure out how to get to them. I forgot, but there is a way to actually set up hotkeys in here. Oh, of course, it's keyboard customization, obviously. So I have actually redone my cut hotkey and just set it to delete instead of actually having to do Control and X every time. So yeah, from now on, I actually can just do delete, and it's just a lot easier than doing Control X. So let's say you want to zoom in on something, on a clip, obviously, but something inside that clip. Now, you can just click on the clip, or in this case, cut first, and then click on the clip you want to zoom and just control the zoom in the Inspector tab. However, I guess you can zoom in like that and then move it with the position like that. And yeah, look, I zoomed in. Wow. But realistically, that doesn't look very good, does it? And I have done that wrong. No, I haven't. Okay, so there we go. Now it's back to normal. So let's say I want to just do a what's called dynamic zoom into the kind of bad cable management I have. So what we are going to do is we're actually going to change the place that we did that cut. So let's just undo a bunch of times. Let's say we are actually going to cut here. So first of all, we're going to split this up, and then we're going to click here, and then click on this drop down menu and select dynamic zoom. The next thing you want to do is make sure you've got the clip selected again, scroll down, tick dynamic zoom here, double click on it, and then yeah, you've now enabled a dynamic zoom. So the green box is actually where the camera will start, and the red one is where the camera will end. So throughout, right now, throughout this clip, it's just going to slowly zoom out, which is not really something that you want. I guess it's a lot more noticeable if you like have it really far in, isn't it? Cable management is not so yeah, as you can see, it's kind of zoomed in on my radiator, and throughout the duration of this entire clip, it will zoom out. Now, that's not really probably what you're wanting. So we can actually press swap to swap the beginning and the end. So as you can see, it's now going to end here and start here, which is what most of you would probably want, to be honest. And let's say we just want to zoom in on my kind of bad cable management. So let's do that. And let's see. Well, obviously, it's going to spend the entire clip zooming into there. So we are going to need to create a cut. So let's say we want to split the clip here. As you can see, now that entire time, it will zoom in. Now, when we get onto the next clip, it zooms out. Now, you might not want that. So now we're going to make a small cut at the end. We're going to click on that. And then we're going to press swap again. I don't think I actually did it. There we go. And as you can see, this is now swapped it, so it will zoom in slowly and zoom out quickly. And that also gives the effect like the actual camera is zooming in, even though it isn't. To get rid of these green and red boxes, by the way, you can just unpress dynamic zoom button here and it'll unzoom it. Also, we don't want this clip to be zooming in, so we're going to click on it and then uncheck dynamic zoom in the inspector tab. Okay, so let's say you've been resizing this and you still can't get this picture like big enough, or maybe you resize it but then that's too small, so you have to keep changing the size. It's probably quite annoying, isn't it? So guess what? What happens if I were to tell you that there's a way to simply just go full screen? Because there is. If you press P on your keyboard, it will actually enter full screen, meaning that you can actually watch your video in full screen, see what it's like, and then, you know, you may spot something that you want to edit, so you can go out of full screen by pressing P again, or by pressing this on your thingy, and then, yeah, just pretty simple and very useful. Something I would also strongly recommend doing is making sure that you trim out long gaps. So, for an example, I just have a gap here of, like, nothing. And, well, if we just play it, dedicated to YouTube things, and then it's kind of just me, like, catching my breath and stuff. However, when I'm recording it, I don't stop and start the recording. I kind of just, like, because I don't want to end up with a bunch of clips, basically, and a bunch of short clips, because, like, every sentence I just need a breather or something, you know? I mean, it's not every sentence, but still. So, something I would recommend doing is just using the blade edit mode to, you know, cut out the bit that you don't want, the silent bit, and then doing shift backspace. Get rid of it. As you can see, there's now no long gap. I have the F drive dedicated to YouTube things. And then you can also see I have... Okay, so something I'd recommend doing is in situations like this, especially if you are viewing on a phone screen, it's going to be really, really hard to see what is going on. And if you think about this, at least on my screen anyway, this preview is actually bigger than a phone screen, and I'm still struggling to read what's going on over there. Obviously, I am further away than a phone screen, and it probably is compressed a little bit, but without zooming in, I can't see what's going on. So we're actually going to zoom in on the actual video instead of just zooming on a preview. And this is going to mean that people on a small screen will be able to see what's going on. So we're going to make sure we have the clip selected, make sure inspector is open, go over here and then use the zoom, or that's the position. Use the zoom to actually zoom in, then the position to move it along a little bit and also up. And we will leave it like that, I think. Or actually, no, let's go in a bit further. Yeah, I think I like it like that. Yeah, I'm happy with it like that. So, whilst I've been editing, I've come across a clip right here, which actually goes pretty loud and really doesn't sound good. So if we just give it a listen real quickly. Yeah, as you can see, episode 4 is missing. It goes really loud. I probably either had my face too close to the mic, or maybe I was just talking really loudly. Don't really know. But we need to fix this, of course, because I really don't want this. Yeah, as you can see, being in my, being in my video. And the way to fix it is to just use the blade edit tool or mode or whatever it's called to simply cut out the audio. And we can see here, if we zoom in, we can get a bit more of an in-depth look at that. And if we cut this, and we can also zoom out now. Oh, of course, no. We obviously need to make another cut. Oh, no, we've already made another cut. And as you can see here, just for this clip, we can now turn down the volume. So let's go to the audio section on the inspector and turn down the audio to, let's say, -5. No, episode 3 is there. Episode 4 then. Yeah, as you can see, episode 4 is missing. It is still kind of loud though. Yeah, as you can see. So I guess we'll just turn it down even more. That's a bit too low. Yeah, as you can see, episode 4 is missing. Yeah, as you can see, episode 4 is missing quite. Now, at this point, there's not that much I can do. It's actually pretty quiet. Yeah, as you can see, episode 4 is missing. It's just, you can hear, because I must have been said that really loud into my mic, you can just sort of hear it. I don't really know what the word is, but it makes my mic sound bad quality. When you shout into a mic, it obviously goes like worse quality, and I don't know what that's actually called when it does. However, it sounds like that's what's happening here. I can't really change that other than just turning down the volume. So something else to point out about this audio track thing is that, let's say, I'm kind of confused what this audio is, because this is obviously meant to be the track for my audio on my desktop, like my desktop audio, game sound, that sort of thing. However, this is the bit where I'm showing off my PC, so I'm confused why there's desktop audio here. So we're going to press this button here, and this mutes all the audio on this track, meaning that we could just listen to this audio. Now, I can't really hear anything, so I'm going to turn up my volume really loud. I would not recommend doing this, I just want to hear what it's like. And after listening to it like that, I doubt you guys will be able to hear it, but that is actually the sound of Minecraft and the minecarts in my Minecraft world, or in my testing world. So we're going to need to delete that, because obviously we don't want that. And I'm assuming it's the same for, yeah, all these. But obviously, after you do that, make sure to turn back down your volume. You don't want to accidentally deafen yourself or whatever. So earlier, I obviously talked a little bit about file structure and how I store all of the clips from previous videos. And it's a time like this where it comes in handy, because I've just mentioned my microphone having a boom arm, and instead of showing the clips at the start of me actually showing my mic, I think it would be a lot better if I were to actually get some footage from my setup tour. So we're going to go into the other, and then the subspecials, 100, setup tour, clips, and obviously one of these are going to be the one with the mic arm. I think it's this one. And then we're obviously just going to want the footage without the audio, which it doesn't look like there is any audio for some reason. We're going to unlink those and just delete that. And there we go. We now obviously need to refine its placement, but that's just why it's good to keep your old clips, because obviously I could screen record a higher quality. I could screen record a version off YouTube. However, that's not very high quality, especially with YouTube compression. This is one of those rare moments where actually the cut tab does come in handy. So I have got this really long video, and it's actually super long, and it's obviously from the setup tour, and I only want the part where I show my microphone. So let's delete it out of our timeline real quickly. Cut. And then let's find the clip over here, double click on it, and then we've got it open up here. Now we can just cut the parts of the clip that we don't want and scrub through it a lot easier as well. So yeah, occasionally using the cut tab does actually come in handy. So after double clicking on the clip, I've lined up the red playhead here, and oh, oops. I didn't even click then. Maybe I have my auto clicker on. But yeah, what you would do is you would line up the playhead at where you want to cut the clip. So in this case, I want to cut it here, and then you would drag this along, and you can see the sort of preview on the left is where the clip starts, and the preview on the right is where the clip ends. So we're just going to drag this all the way along to the red playhead. Now, unfortunately, it does not have the snapping. Like, it does not snap to the playhead, which is a shame, but maybe they'll add it in the future, or maybe there is a setting to turn that on, I don't know, but then we're also just going to cut the end of this clip a bit. And actually, to be fair, I don't really think we need to cut the end of the clip. I'm kind of happy with how it is. So yeah, we're going to leave it like that. And we are now going to get that clip over here, and you can see it's actually already been cut. So now if we drag it back into the edit tab, it's significantly shorter, and we can get rid of the audio. But yeah, it has actually cut, the part out that we wanted, and it's only got the part of me showing my mic. Okay, so let's say you're editing a really long video, a little bit like this one actually, and you obviously want to put it into sections. And let's say that you maybe forgot that you wanted to put text in between each section so that people would know what section they're on. So for an example, over here, I'm talking about NVIDIA Broadcast. I then switched to OBS settings. I want to put in some text here that actually, has the NVIDIA, that has like the title so that people know that now they're watching the bit about OBS settings. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your text, if you are using text anyway, write out whatever's on that text and then drag it over into the media thing. I've already done this, so I can delete it because I don't actually need it. But you might also want to do this just with another video source, and that's fine. I'm going to do it with text though, so I dragged in the text. It just says OBS settings on it. So now it's in the media pool. Right click on it, or left click and then right click, and then press insert selected tips to timeline. However, make sure the red playhead is in between those two clips. That's a pretty important part. Okay, so there we go. Insert selected clips to timeline, and as you can see, it has now perfectly put it in between those two clips without actually, cutting them off. If we undo that and then try and drag it in, you can see it just covers parts of the video, which isn't very good, and it has actually deleted that video. So yeah, we don't want that. So we'll undo all of that and just do the same thing again. Insert selected clips to timeline. There we go. Perfect. So as you can see on screen now, I have run into a little bit of a problem. So this isn't really unusual for any video editing software. I've actually heard that this happens quite a lot in Adobe Premiere Pro, which is why you always need to make sure to save your project. Just every so often, just hit Control and S and save your project. As you can see here, I basically didn't save the thing, and then I left Resolve open and put my computer into sleep mode. I turned it back on, and that has just made the Resolve not responding. Now, obviously, this shouldn't happen, and this isn't going to happen every time, but you do need to account for things like this happening in your workflow, which is why you should incorporate saving your project every so often, just so that, if something does happen, you're not going to lose a load amount of progress. Luckily, I hadn't lost too much progress because I'm pretty good at saving my clips. For example, it actually really annoys me to have that edited text up there. There's a bit of text at the top that says edited next to the project title. If that's there, that really annoys me. So yeah, I always make sure to try and save my clips, because you may have to restart Resolve, which is not something that you're going to want to have to do, especially if you're working on a long video like this one. Now, let's say you record something and you want it to be blurred out. So for an example, here you can see on the Photopea website, there are actually adverts here, and I don't really mind having adverts from my other websites in my videos and that sort of thing. However, let's say I did mind and I wanted to blur out these adverts. I'm going to show you how to do that. So first of all, we're going to need to find where the start of the blur is and where the end of the blur is. So you can see over here, we're zoomed in where you can't see the adverts. However, over here we zoom out because we're about to switch tabs and we might want to blur these adverts. So we're going to find the point just before we switch tabs, and it is here. So then we're going to use this blade edit mode thingy to cut it in half. And as you can see, on this clip, we just simply need to blur out this area of the screen. So we're going to head over to the color tab down here. We're then going to select the clip that we want. In this case, it is this. You can also see a mini version of the timeline here. So you can obviously like use that to select your clip, or just select the clip up here. Then you're going to want to press on this tab over here, which opens a bunch of this window, I guess apparently is what it's called. And you're going to want to select the square shape. I guess you could also use the circle shape as well. Then just simply drag it over here and make sure it is obviously covering where you want it to be blurred. Unfortunately, if you hold shift, it does not keep it straight, which means you do have to kind of have a fairly straight hand to do this. But once you've selected the area that you want blurring, simply go over to the blur tab over here and turn up this, and as you can see, it's blurred. You could also turn it down to make it like really unblurred, and kind of, I don't know, I guess it's kind of made the contrast really high, hasn't it? But yeah, you don't have to turn this up all the way. You could turn it down like just a bit or a lot. And you can actually go higher than the actual like these toggles. You can go, or they're not toggles, these sliders, that's the word. You can go higher than those if you want to, as you can see. But yeah, you're probably not going to need to. I'm just going to blur it up to like the highest that it'll let, well, the highest on that toggle thing, which is, well, actually, maybe we'll go a bit higher. Let's just go with that. You definitely can't see anything over there. If we then go back to the edit tab, you can see now that those adverts are blurred. Not that it really matters. I don't really mind showing ads in my videos. However, you might. So yeah, I guess now you know how to blur things in your videos. Okay, so if we actually watch back what we have done, you can see here that there is like a split second where the blur is not there. Now, luckily, we can actually, first of all, I would recommend turning off snapping to do this, but we can actually adjust the length of this blurred part of the clip, because this is the one with the blur, this is just the normal clip. And if we just adjust the length of it like that, I have got that selected wrong. So if you make sure that nothing's selected and then put your cursor in between the two so it looks like this, you can change the length. So we are going to do that to about here, I think. So now if we watch that back again, yeah, as you can see, it looks fine now. We'll also just extend the length of that text. Oh, and turn back on snapping. Okay, so let's say you want to speed up some footage, potentially for a time lapse or whatever, then that's fine. You can obviously do that. So the first thing you're going to make sure to do is press on this to unlink selection, or I've binded this to the L key. So I'm just going to press L on my keyboard, and then we're going to delete the audio. You could obviously keep the audio if you wanted to. However, I personally think time lapses sound a bit weird with the audio in. Then right click on the video clip, press the button here that says change clip speed, and then you can turn up the speed with the slider or type in your custom amount. You could also make it go in reverse if you wanted to. Obviously bear in mind that because you are changing the speed, you're also going to be changing the FPS of that clip as well. So by default it's just on 100%, and I pressed enter and I didn't mean to. Whoops. But yeah, you are, for this clip anyway, I don't want it particularly fast. For like my Minecraft time lapses, I either do 1000 or 2000. If you do it too high, then it just won't render. So unless you have a really good computer, I guess. But like I've done it higher before and it didn't render. So don't do it too high. Don't go above 1 million. To be fair, don't go above like 5,000 either. Just like think about how fast you're going. And if you do feel the need to have a time lapse that's really fast, then you probably have too much footage for that time lapse. And that is something that you should always remember, is to not record too much footage in the first place, or to cut out footage if you need to. But yeah, anyway, I'm just going to turn this up like a little bit faster. Let's turn it to 500, I think. And as you can see, this is now at 500. However, the problem is it's not really cut, or it's kind of kept the same length which is not really what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to be shorter, so we're going to Control Z that. Okay, so as you can see, it has kept the same length. So now we are just going to need to figure out where the end of this clip is meant to be. So if we watch this, we can see over here, it's when I'm putting in the X position here. So we are going to now need to find that in the time lapse. So roughly around here. Now if we cut this back a bit, and oh yeah, we need to turn on linked selection. So I'll do that, and then boop. There we go. So now, as you can see, it is now a bit of a time lapse. Okay, so let's say you've finished editing your video. Normally I would obviously have my outro end screen and all that sort of thing. Technically this video hasn't actually finished being edited yet, especially because I obviously need to actually put this clip into it. But yeah, when you've finished your video, you're going to want to head over here to the Deliver tab. And you can see here that we have got all these settings. If you actually press this arrow, it'll make this bigger, which is a lot easier than having to scroll through it, if you ask me. And basically what this is this is where you will render your video to a final file of whatever file type you choose, probably MP4, for you to obviously upload to YouTube or wherever else. So there is a YouTube preset on here. However, I actually prefer using the custom settings because you have a little bit more control over a couple of things that, in my experience, has made my videos better quality than using this YouTube preset. So let's press on custom, and we're going to obviously need to give it a file name. So I'm just going to call it How I Make My Videos, and then we're going to need to choose the location to save it in. So let's press browse, and I will just locate to the folder for this video real quickly. There it is. So press save. Now you can choose QuickTime, which is .mov, or MP4. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to do MP4. The codec, there's only one option on MP4, and that is H.264, which is absolutely fine. Your resolution, this is where you'll change the resolution. So there's all these resolutions here. Like most of you will probably just be going for 1080p or potentially 4K as well. You may also wish to use a custom one. So let's say you're using, let's say you want to render it at 1440p, then you can here. Although I don't want to, I want to render it at 1080p. So we're going to go back to 1080p. There we go. Frame rate, because our project is at 60 FPS, it's only going to render at 60 FPS, and there aren't any other options for us to do that. You need to change your project settings up here before you obviously create the timeline, but I showed you that earlier. And then on the quality thing, press automatic and make sure that this is selected to best. You could, I guess, restrict it if you wanted to. If you do decide to restrict this, it's recommended to go to roughly 3,000. Is that even 1,000? How many zeros are there? Yeah, it's recommended to go to 3,000 because even if that's higher than what you recorded in, it means that YouTube compression still won't hit it as bad. However, we're just going to do best. I'm going to experiment with doing this maybe. So it might actually be worth doing this. You're going to have to do your own experiments because I have not experimented with that yet. But then make sure encoding profile is also on high. Then you can leave all this stuff about keyframes. Just make sure it's on automatic. And I guess tick frame reordering, although I don't think it really matters because we've not done anything like that, or at least I haven't. Then simply press add to render queue. This is the render queue, so you could have multiple videos, and you could, if you select them all and then press start render, it will obviously render all the ones that you've selected in the render queue. In this case though, we just want to render this video, so we'll make sure it's selected, which it is, and press start render. However, we don't want to render it, obviously, because I haven't finished the video, but you guys can obviously render it when you have finished your video. I'm just going to press X to, get it out of the render queue because I need to actually finish editing it. But that is actually the end of the video editing tutorial. As I said at the start of the video, if there was something else that you wanted to do, then maybe just Google it. There's often a Reddit post, or there's also the Blackmagic Design forums, or however you're meant to say it. So yeah, you can just Google it. Google is your best friend. If you want a more in-depth tutorial, then just search on YouTube for DaVinci Resolve 16 tutorial. I don't know, maybe by the time you're watching this, 17 may have released. There is actually the public beta for DaVinci Resolve 17 available to download right now. However, it's a lot more laggier on my PC due to me having 16 gigabytes of RAM. I'm pretty sure they turned up the recommended amount of RAM to 32 gigabytes for DaVinci Resolve, which is one of the reasons why I want to get an upgrade on my RAM in the future. Okay, so now it is finally time for the summary of today's video, or just this video. So obviously we started talking about the hardware, and I said about overclocking, and basically my guideline on that was make sure to, if you do overclock manually, make sure to do it in a safe way, make sure you know what you're doing. I would just recommend doing automatic overclocks, like my graphics card had an automatic overclock scanner, or just using the boost clock on your CPU, you know, that sort of thing, or enabling XMP on your RAM, that sort of thing. Overclocking isn't really necessary though if you don't want to do it. Of course, it probably isn't going to have that much of a difference. I just want to squeeze every last bit of, well, technically not every last bit, but you know, just as much as I can from my system. So then obviously we talked about file structure. It doesn't have to be as organized as mine. However, I would strongly recommend having an organized file structure and maybe dedicating a spare hard drive, or even better, a spare SSD if you can, of course. Bear in mind that things will load slower if you are editing off a hard drive. However, I edit off a hard drive and generally don't have too many problems. We then, of course, went on to talk about NVIDIA Broadcast. There are other mic suppression or background noise suppression software thingies out there if you need them. As I say, some of you might not even need them. However, I certainly do need them, and it does also come in handy if you have a loud keyboard and mouse. We then went on to talk about OBS settings. Yeah, that's just pretty good. I'm happy with that, don't really need to add anything else. And obviously, something else to point out though is that in that section, something I can't remember mentioning, but you don't really need a capture card. Capture cards aren't going to improve the quality of your video. They will simply just mean that your CPU or graphics card isn't going to have to do as much work as it would if it was doing a screen capture, because instead there was like a CPU on the capture card instead. But I personally don't think it's worth the money, unless of course you want console gameplay. YouTube compression, we obviously talked a bit about that. It's a pain. The general way that you can get around that is rendering your videos in a higher quality than what they actually are, or a higher bitrate than what they actually are. That way YouTube will treat it like it is a higher bitrate thing and compress it less. That is how you want to get higher quality or worse YouTube compression. Especially if you look at some of my earlier videos as well, they don't even look that bad quality, but they do on YouTube, and it is a massive pain. So if you can record in 1440p, I would recommend it, or higher obviously. We obviously talked about royalty-free music. You can just use paid music and just get copyright claims. I don't think there's actually any bad points about getting claims, other than potentially either getting a copyright strike depending on what music you're using, or also potentially getting ads put on your videos. And that means that if in the future you want to monetize your videos, or that video specifically, you can't, because somebody else has already done it first. I know it's kind of a pain, but whatever. What else did we talk about? So then we talked about video editing and DaVinci Resolve. It may be free, however you should get out of the mindset that thinking free things are bad, because they aren't always bad. So a couple of other general tips now. You're going to want to make sure that when you're talking, you talk as loud as possible, or not necessarily as loud as possible, but just make sure that that green bar is in the yellow section on OBS, or maybe a bit lower than that. If you're talking quietly, then you may have to turn up the volume when you're editing, and generally when you do that, you'll be able to then hear some static in the background. That's what happened to me, definitely on my first video, probably on my second one as well. I was talking so quietly that I had to turn up my volume. Also, remember that in your Windows settings, you can turn up the volume of your microphone as well. The other thing I would like to point out is don't do like subscribe for subscribe things. It doesn't help your channel grow. It's way better advertising in places and then letting people choose whether they want to check out your channel than you know, just telling people to subscribe and then you'll subscribe back, because that will not give you a audience, that will just give you subscribers. But if your videos aren't getting views, then subscribers really mean nothing. It's also the same, don't use a sub bot unless you're going to use a view bot as well. However, I wouldn't recommend doing either of those, so yeah, just don't do it, not worth it. Same with pirating stuff, don't do that either, it's illegal, don't do it. There are plenty of free alternatives. Obviously DaVinci Resolve isn't the only free alternative, however in my opinion it is one of the best, if not the best, and it's also the one that I use as well. But yeah, that is pretty much gonna do it from me. Thank you so much for watching this video. It took ages to make. Obviously this is probably around about a 2-hour video, maybe less. It was at one point a 2-hour video. I don't know if it is anymore. Yeah, I don't know if it is actually a 2-hour video anymore, because I may have removed some clips. However, at one point this is going to be a 2-hour video, potentially even is a 2-hour video. And if you think I have to watch this through to make sure I haven't made any editing mistakes, as well as just editing it in the first place, it takes a lot of time. So I would really greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe and join the Alien Empire today. Maybe also check out my Twitch as well, twitch.tv/TheAlienDoctor_ and my Twitter, and basically just all my socials linked in the description. But yeah, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Maybe check out my normal content. Normally I make Minecraft content, but yeah, I'll see you later. Bye.